1, 2. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the launch of the Williams Team F1 sponsor portfolio for 2008. Please, will you give a warm welcome for Sir Jackie Stewart.
Hello there. Glad to see so many of you here today for this important change in the direction of F1, and in particular, the Williams team. You may have heard recently that I was worried that the ongoing spying scandal in F1 between Ferrari and McLaren would scare many sponsors away. Well, that is true. However, it's also attracted a number of new sponsors to the sport, 2 of which have joined Williams F1 as partners. If I unveil the car now, you should be able to read their names written proudly on the engine cover and side pods of this season's Williams F1 Challenger.
So, Sir Jackie, who are these new partners?
Well, Slater, Nazi and Ledger are a group of lawyers who specialise in representing clients accused of industrial espionage, and Micro.uk are a British technology firm who are world leaders in developing bugs and gadgets used in spying. And now that I've told you that, I'm afraid I'll have to kill you.
Gareth Jones on Speed! Hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed. I'm not Zog.
I'm not Gareth Jones.
I'm not.
Oh, that's tricky.
I am Richard Porter,
That'll
but
do it,
maybe
yeah.
I won't be later. I haven't decided.
Hi, fellas. You have a good summer break?
Pretty good, yep.
I had a fantastic summer break. Yeah, I went away on holiday, which was nice. Hired a little Fiat Panda 1.1. It's like a little donkey of a car. Just wouldn't stop.
Great.
It was great. I loved it. And then I came back. Oh, it's the Goodwood Revival as well, which was
That's good.
it's fantastic. I've never been before, and it is amazing. And to see all these old cars going around and being driven properly. And I bought a 50 quid 3-piece suit from Camden Market and a hat.
And very nice you looked in it too.
I showed you the pictures, didn't I? And it was great fun. And yeah, the racing, I mean, people properly going for it in these old cars. And the only sort of slight blot on it was Martin Stretton, who people might know as a big noise in the kind of old car racing world.
Had a
this
crash.
massive off, and it was really quite sickening. You felt this knot in your throat because he properly went off, and they weren't replaying it on the big screens or showing the site of the crash, and they had to cut the car apart to get him out. But amazingly, he got out with just a broken elbow, which is incredible. But the worst thing was, I know
those old cars aren't quite as.
No, they're not. It was apparently what happened was one part of the
safe
dashboard sort of bent round in one way, and the other part bent round the other way. He was just left in this little sort of triangle survival cell, but that was not by design. It was pure luck, and it was the steering wheel as it sort of bent round out was where it shouldn't have been that clipped his elbow and broke it. But the worst thing was I met Martin Stretton a while ago. I had to go and see him at his place in Shropshire because we were talking about borrowing some of his cars for filming. And I was on my way there with a colleague, and I was desperate for the loo. But we're in the countryside, and there was nowhere to go. And I said, I can't turn up. Except the countryside. Well, here's the thing. So I said to my mate Jim, who I was in the car with, I can't turn up and go, hi, nice to meet you, I need to use your loo. It's just a bit rude. And I can't arrive and go, hi, I'm going to try and talk, because all I can think of is going to the loo. So we stopped in a gateway, and I relieved myself in a gateway. But, of course, there's no sink in a gateway, so I couldn't wash my hands. So then we turned up, and then I shook Martin Stretton by the hand, and I thought, oh, that's such bad form.
It's okay as long as you don't tell anybody. And it doesn't
well,
get back to him.
but Jim knew, because we were talking about all the way there. I was going, oh God, okay, we're going to get here, and that's fine. Okay, so let's meet Martin. I shook his hand, and afterwards I said, Jim, I shook his hand, and I'd just been to the loo in a gateway, and all I could think of when we found out that he was all right, and I was like, oh, thank God Martin Stratton's all right. What happened? How did he suddenly go off? And I thought, what if he just went, hang on a minute, that tall bloke I saw earlier on, I've met him before, and he shook his hand and got wee on my hand.
It's your fault, Richard.
So it might be my fault.
I love the Goodwood Revival. I went a few years ago and had an absolutely wonderful time. I took the kids with us. Violet and I both went, and our 2 kids, and I took a load of outfits for them to wear, knickerbockers and flat hats and stuff. I don't know if you know about the Goodwood Revival. I would imagine if you're listening to Gareth Jones on Speed, you do, but it's kind of like a fancy dress show. It's all period cars, and everyone turns up in period dress, and if you're wearing period dress, you can get into the paddock and touch the Ferrari Lancia D50 like I did. Oh, that was it. Oh, that's why I loved it. But I think I must have admitted to tell Violet about this, and we all got dressed in the hotel to go. And Violet came out and just fell about laughing. She'd never seen me wear a tie before.
Didn't realise there was such a thing as like a fancy dress car meeting.
How she could not even imagine such a thing when it's so perfectly obvious to the rest of us, I don't know. Anyway,
I love that the Goodwood Revival happens every year, but whenever it happens, I feel a particularly strong pang of regret that I no longer have my 1965 Volvo P1800S, which would be just old enough to qualify for the old car paddock.
Yeah.
And it was just a lovely car. I really regret the fact that I don't have it anymore. Whenever the Revival comes up, I just feel that pain a little bit.
to have that car back.
Because I met a bloke who was a bit miffed at the Revival because he'd got a 1967 Volvo Amazon, and they wouldn't let him into the pre-66 parking area because it was 6 months too young.
I just want to read a mail I received today at 12:47pm from a listener who I'll just call Tim. Hello there, GJ. I had a strange and unnerving dream last night, writes Tim, and upon waking up immediately thought of you. Ron Dennis had come to stay at my house and brought with him a large collection of Northern Soul records, which he wanted to describe to me in great detail. After cooking a delicious dinner, he then announced he had to be off to the bowling alley. He even had his own striped bowling shoes in matching McLaren livery. Considering it was the eve of the World Motorsport Council hearing, he seemed very relaxed, not a bomber jacket in sight either. Please tell me what my dream means. Are you troubled by motorsport nightmares like Tim there? If so, can I suggest counselling, therapy, or even a regular download of Gareth Jones On Speed? There's so much to talk about in F1 at the moment, it's hard to know where to start, but the thing that everyone is talking about, even outside of those people who are interested in motor racing, is this continuing espionage palaver, I think is the best word for it. Now Renault are getting.
When will it end?
I don't think it will. I think this is going to be a kind of war like we've had in Northern Ireland, which goes on forever and ever and ever. It becomes retributional, regardless of what the motivation was in the first place.
Let's look on the bright side.
Yeah. Do you think they'll ban the guys? In the way that they banned the IRA from using their own voice on TV, do you think a spokesman from Ferrari or McLaren could be banned from using their own voice, and that Jean Tot's voice will have to be done by an actor or something in future?
It would make the post-race conferences quite interesting if that's what they were going to do with the drivers as well. Which I'm with Jackie Stewart on this as well. Did you hear him saying it's unfair the drivers are pulled into it? And I think he's right. You penalise the teams, take away championship points from them if you must, but leave the drivers out of it, since as Jackie said, they are just doing their job with the equipment that's given to them.
Absolutely agree. I mean, it's such a shame that in the year when we've got the most exciting driver debut possibly in the history of the sport, that that it's kind of
hang on. What about UGE Day? I mean, come on, that was an exciting.
But that was exceptional circumstances. We have to discount that. They might be tainted by all this rubbish. The other thing is, I'm just getting really, really bored of this. It's really dragging on. It's dragging the sport down. It's rather like what's happening in cycling, Tour de France, all that kind of scandal. This is not good for the sport. And I just suspect that people are making a bit too much of this. Yeah. Bottom line, I do not know what's going on, and I've kind of lost the will to really find out.
Well, here's the thing.
But I don't believe that McLaren, as an organisation, have done anything terribly wrong. No. Clearly, some individuals have done. I'm sure some individuals have done some dodgy things, and maybe the team's been a bit slack in keeping some eye on people. I don't know, but I just don't believe that McLaren have done anything horrible.
But that is the thing, that this controversy and how it's in the press and the wider world now has become bigger than the actual crime it's supposed to be investigating, which I can't even remember what it was. I think somebody stole a pencil from someone else. It's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, it's become so political and so complicated and dragged on for so long. And let's be honest, we've said this before on the show, that it's not like it's the first time that there's been a little bit of what you might generously call data exchange under the table in F1. And but now this has become this huge issue. Perhaps it's because this is a great F1 season. It's been, it's been interesting. It's stayed interesting, which is half the battle, because often it doesn't. And because of that, F1 is very popular and in the headlines anyway, because of Hamilton. And so the good is in the headlines, and then the bad has to follow. I don't know.
It would be a real shame if good news is kind of sucking the bad news along in its slipstream, if you like.
Which brings me to aerodynamics in Formula One again. It's true, guys. But this continuing development on the cars. I don't know if you watch it. I've been trying to watch the racing and the sporting side of it while all this is going on. There are still some new ideas appearing in cars all the time. Have you seen that the Ferraris now have wheel covers on the front as well as the back?
They look silly.
They look
awful.
Really bad.
Was it me, or was it at Italy? They'd put a design on them to make them look more like sort of cross-spokey.
Yeah. They're like they painted wheels on.
Yeah, which is even worse.
Which, coincidentally, did you see that revised mini Enzo that Ferrari developed? They said, look, this is what the Enzo's going to be like in 10 years' time. It was like 3/4 of the size of the Enzo. Everything had been scaled down, and it was a model. But the wheels were painted on in exactly the same pattern as on the wheels of that Ferrari car. So there may be a promotional.
Well, they do that sometimes with design models, which that Ferrari road car thing was, because they just to give you that sort of sense of scale. Not as bad as I was talking to a mate of mine who was at the Frankfurt Motor Show, and Honda have got this Accord concept there this week, and apparently it's such a glass fibre mock-up that the exterior door handles are just bits of cardboard stuck to the outside and then painted silver. Where are we going with that? Sorry, quite literally as a mock-up.
I tell you what this whole thing reminds me of, though, talking about that. There was a legendary American stock car builder who he came up with all kinds of little workarounds, little ways of bending the rules. And one of his good innovations was in one season when the authorities couldn't quite figure out why his cars were going so quickly, because they have to be. They're stock cars.
Yeah.
They've got to be pretty close to the road cars.
Yeah.
And every race they were scrutinising the cars, they were having a look. They just couldn't figure out why this car, that appeared to be almost identical to the original road car, was so much quicker.
Can I offer up the answer? Yeah, I think you must have told me this. Was it anything to do with the body shell being lowered into a vat of acid for a few short seconds in order to strip off 10% of the mass?
That's a very good guess, but not quite correct. He did that one as well.
That was plan A. Plan B, if I'm right, because I think you did tell me this before, was that the car was actually like 7/8 scale.
Exactly, yeah, that's it.
It was smaller and therefore lighter than everyone else's, but
with the same engine. Absolute genius.
So by the same token, do we think that the current Spyker Ferrari F8 741, whatever the number it is probably a 1.5 scale model? It's actually larger than all the others, and they put it a bit further away. That's why it's so slow.
I quite fancy putting a current engine in one of your little 1/43rd scale models over there and see how quickly we could get that thing to
talking of scaling cars down, the Mark III Ford Cortina, they started exporting it from Dagenham to Japan, but Japan has car tax laws relating to the width of a car. Yeah. Now, the Cortina was just a few millimetres too wide for the Japanese tax bracket they wanted it to fit into. So the body shells for Japanese spec Cortinas were taken off the line after the body in white assembly weldy bit and clamped to within a millimetre of their lives. So they just squidged them down a little bit, because it was mils. It was literally just mils, so it's just enough to just squeeze it, because the tolerance is just down just a little bit, and then they were legal.
They could just have got a couple of big lads to lean against them.
Exactly. Well, that's what they used to do. I'll tell you what they used to do with the Sunbeam Tiger. You remember that Roadster thing?
Yeah,
in the
great
V8.
Chrysler
V8.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And Rob Newman's got one.
Has he?
Yeah.
Is it hilarious? Or is it thought-provoking and yet political? He's Robert Newman, though, isn't he?
Does he feel rather guilty about it? Because I saw a stage show of his that was all about the history of oil and geopolitics.
Hang on, whoa.
He's got a V8 sports car.
He had an Alpine.
Oh, okay.
He had an Alpine. And then he came to me about 18 months, 2 years ago, for advice on how to run the first carbon-neutral tour.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, and also, we're not going to have a go at him for being a hypocrite.
No, not at all.
Because he's aware of some issues, but he also likes cars.
He likes his car.
Like that.
So what was I saying? Oh yeah. So Sunbeam, what was it? The Alpine was the 4-cylinder one.
Yeah.
And then there was the Tiger.
Tiger, I meant.
The Tiger was the V8.
Yeah.
And the V8 was from Ford.
Was it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I think this is right. Email in if I'm not right. It didn't really fit into the Alpine shell. What used to happen is when the cars that were going to become V8s, they were diverted off the line, and a burly man with a sledgehammer would step in and bang out of the way some of the metal that was going to block the V8. And when Chrysler bought the Roots Group and therefore Sunbeam, they said, well, you're going to have to use a Chrysler V8 now. And unfortunately, the burly man just couldn't bash enough metal out of the way, so it killed that car.
Listen,
the high-tech British car industry. You've got to love it.
well, bashing sunbeams, right, or crunching Cortinas. That's actually, how they squeeze the Cortina for the Japanese market, like you're saying. That's how they came up with the idea of selling it as the Ford Concertina.
No!
These are jokes, folks.
I tell you what, talking about the British motor industry, I've been up to Longbridge this week. This sounds like it's prelude to a joke, and it's not at all. It's actually very sad. I went to Longbridge and we were filming on the site of the old Westworks, one of the oldest parts of Herbert Austin's great empire. And it's not there anymore. It's just waste ground. And across the road you can see the Northworks, again, another part of this huge factory, once the biggest car production line in Europe. That's rubble. They're scooping away the bricks. And there's just the new Westworks left behind where the old one was, which is the one they built for the Metro in the early 80s or the late 70s. And that is still standing.
The mini Metro.
The mini Metro. Yeah. Couldn't call it the Metro because Metro came on the tube train. People said you can't use our name.
Yeah. And it's very easy to confuse a train.
I'm just geeking out like crazy here.
It's great.
Stop.
Carry on. We love it.
So it's really sad. So we were standing on this bit of waste ground where, once the biggest car factory in Britain was. And it's waste ground and it's rubble. It was really, really sad. But the one building that's still left on the land that's now been sold, the Chinese don't want anymore, is the new Westworks, which they built to construct the Metro in. And because it's a newer building, they left it standing there hoping to sell it to someone. But I was with a mate of mine that I work with, and we're looking across all this desolation. Then we looked round at this new building just standing there, sort of imperiously looking across devastation. And my mate just went, that other building must be crapping itself.
The decline of the British
It was genuinely
industry.
depressing. It was really sad. But there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for coming to this FIA press conference. Now, we've asked you here today to hear details of a new and very stringent disciplinary measure that we'll be introducing to Formula One with immediate effect. It's an idea which we've adopted from the education system in Britain, and it's called, quite simply, the naughty seat.
Jeremy Slip, BBC Radio. Can you explain a little more about this?
Yes. Now, if a driver infringes the regulations or causes trouble within the sport, they'll be made to occupy the naughty seat. We believe this will act as a significant deterrent because the naughty seat will be uncomfortable, embarrassing, and awkward.
Where will the naughty seat be located?
It's basically in the second Spyker F87.
Guys, I'm going to bring this to a halt fairly soon, but I want to talk about one other thing that's going on in F1 at the moment. Dear old Spyker, or as I prefer to call them, Jordan. Still, old habits die hard.
Come on, Eddie.
And thank you. Once again, this once great team is changing hands in less than 12 months because they've run out of cash, basically. And it's the rather foolish but bold idea that Spyker Cars could own an F1 team and bankroll it for a year or so. Once again, has come a cropper. But they've got lots of money now, apparently, from India.
Yeah, which is, and in a way, this is a very big story because it just seems to me there's something quite significant in an Indian business magnate buying into F1 in this way because we know that Bernie is keen to take the sport
to new markets.
Away from Europe, new markets, and so it's important for that reason. It's part of that process.
There are two reasonably handy drivers from India who are rumoured to be considered at the moment. One is Naren Karthikeyan, ex-Jordan driver who'd be coming home, who can be very quick.
He's quite handy sometimes.
Oh, yeah. He
not reliable, but quick.
Exactly. He put in a couple of moments driving for the A1 Team India team in the last season of A1, which made you think, crikey, he can do it, but he's a bit inconsistent. Would he be good enough for F1? I don't know. He was all right in Jordan, but, and the other one is dear Karen Shanduk, who once again drove in the first season of A1GP very briefly, who's done a bit of GP2 as well. I think he's in GP2 at the moment and will certainly be in the GP2 Asia series, I would think. But dear Karen Chanduk is probably the most warm-hearted Formula One driver, or potential Formula One driver, or certainly race driver, you'll ever meet. He ferried me from a bar in Portugal back to a hotel some 20 miles away in Glasgow. I went around driving people who couldn't get home. He was just one of those generally generous people. So Karen, who's a lovely guy, he can be doomed in Formula One because you've got to be a goddamn piranha to survive, haven't you? But it would be nice to have some more money in the Spyker team and have them back on.
I think we wish them well. We'd like to see them. We'd like to see it work out well. So let's hope it's a good move.
I know you guys are going to go off and probably watch the Belgian Grand Prix now. So guys, who's going to win the Belgian Grand Prix? Alonso, Massa, Kimi, Hamilton?
I don't think I can call it, but if I've got to put my money on someone, it's just impossible to say. But if I have to pick somebody, I'm picking Lewis.
I'm going to say Lewis as well, just because I like him.
And I'm putting £1,000 on Sakon Yamamoto. I mean, just for entertainment.
I'll take that bet.
Say goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye.
Subscribe to this podcast for free at the iTunes Store. Email us at onspeed@garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made by Whiz Bang, allegedly.